Well, welcome once again. This is the Doctor of Digital, the Doctor of Digital podcast. And for many people, they've got a story. But what I'm talking about today is that most entrepreneurs dream about building a company. Jay Steinfeld sold it and then made a decision almost no founder makes. He stayed. I'm Mick, the Doctor of Digital, and this episode is about leadership after success. What happens when a startup becomes part of a Fortune 50 company, and why the most important chapter of a founder's story often begins after the acquisition. At one point, Jay explains why staying at Home Depot for 6 years wasn't simply the right financial decision, it became the greatest leadership education of his career. We also capture why so few founders experience that chapter and what boards, executives, and entrepreneurs can learn from those who do. And with that, I want to welcome Jay to the program. Good to see you, Jay.
Hey, Mick, thanks for having me.
You bet. So I've been looking forward to this for a lot of reasons. So I have some personal connection to Home Depot in some ways. And of course, I've bought blinds as well, too. So before blinds.com became the largest online window coverings retailer, before the acquisition, before Home Depot, I want to go back to the beginning. Every successful company begins with someone willing to take a risk. You started with $1,500 investment and a belief that people would buy online blinds at a time when most people thought that idea was crazy. What gave you the confidence to think about that?
Well, the premise is actually wrong. I had no confidence. I didn't study the market. I didn't understand what the TAM was. I didn't do any kind of studying at all. I was in the blinds business in a retail store with my wife, Naomi, and all these competitors were biting my feet, like Home Depot and Amazon was emerging. So what else could I do but just see what I could do to compete against them? So I went online in 1993, and at that time, Amazon hasn't even started. So I didn't know you could sell things online. Sure. It was really just an experiment. So there was no confidence at all. It was, let's just try this, 1,500. What do I have to lose? So asymmetric risk is really the key for that and for all decisions. If I see that there's only a $1,500 loss, if it doesn't work out, so what? Right. That's nothing. And the upside, indeterminable, had no idea. And I just kept at it, and it just slowly built over time before I said, you know what? I think I should sell my store and go 100% online, which took me 8 years to make that decision. So I didn't feel like I had any risk at all.
Now, interestingly, you've given us some idea of the decisions that led to what you did, but I'm also curious about other aspect. Your company consistently appeared on the best places to work. How intentional was culture from the beginning?
Well, again, I just want to make it clear, when I started the business, I knew virtually nothing about running a business. I knew about how to sell blinds. And the cultural thing, I didn't believe in core values, and it just seemed like a pile of something. And I just didn't understand that was something that could motivate myself or my people. My wife passed away once I went full-time into blinds, and that's a whole story, but it caused me to be introspective and to understand maybe what makes me tick. How do I define success? How do I define the future? Okay. And I had to then start learning about myself so that I could exist, so I could run this business, or should I just stop? Because I had 3 children. And I needed to learn about that. And once I did, and I was authentic and true about what motivates me, and it turned out to be the 4 E's that I write about in my book, Lead from the Core, about evolving continuously, experimenting without fear, which I've already mentioned about experimentation. That's a big one. Expressing yourself and giving people the opportunity to express themselves. And 4th, enjoy the ride, just have fun. Once I understood that, then what I did was hire people with those same core values. I looked for good athletes, but also people especially who were not fearful of making a mistake. In fact, relished the ambiguity of entrepreneurship. I got additional people who thought like an entrepreneur rather than taskmasters who had just understood marketing or understood hiring or any of that. So once we had that team, and once I learned how to assemble teams and get them efficient, why would somebody leave when the mission of the whole company was to help people become better than what they ever believed possible? And they knew that was true because of those core values and the way I presented myself and the way I made decisions. And if you were at an organization where you were prompted and expected to get better every day and to help everyone around you get better, then you had an organization that was doing things that with little money and few people could do things that Amazon and Home Depot weren't doing. And that's really fun, to beat the odds. And our turnover was 8%. And that we had 2/3 of the company was a call center. And call centers are notorious for having tremendous turnover.
Yep.
So if you had 8% turnover, you're doing something right. So people just love to be there. They felt like they were improving themselves, not just accomplishing things. And that was the point, helping people become better than they ever believed possible. And that caused people to stay. Hiring costs were lower. Teamwork was better. Everything was better as a result. When Home Depot or anyone came by looking, or when just a prospective employee came by during the interview process, they'd look around and see people smiling, having fun, laughing. And most of the time they would say, "You just did that during the hiring process. You just did that to capture me, right?" And then they'd get there and go, "I can't believe it. It actually is like that."
So that's really fascinating because culture is so important. And if people really feel a part of things, then they want to do better. And that's a really insightful when it comes to managing a team and culture. And so you've talked about core values and written about it. How did those principles shape the company's growth?
Well, getting the right people, everyone says it's the greatest asset is your people. Well, that means you better have really good people and getting people working together. So those core values helped me define who I was looking for and how we would work together.
So nothing goes.
I could go on with a lot more on that, but I think we probably have a lot of other questions to get to. So I'm going to keep it short. If you want me to go on, I will.
Everything doesn't go perfectly right. So I'm curious, what kind of mistakes have made and what have you learned from mistakes?
Well, first of all, I answer questions a lot of times in a philosophical way.
Sure.
And that doesn't always satisfy viewers. They want tactical, strategic advice. But for me, if you're experimenting without fear of failure, you know most of the things you do are not going to work. But if you call them a mistake, then it's a mistake for me is something that is could sink the ship. Anything else is positive. It was the wrong hire. Okay, so you learn from how to hire better. You made a marketing decision that didn't work. Okay, so you don't do that anymore. They're not really mistakes. They're just learning opportunities. And you hear that all the time. But a lot of people just can't do that because they don't want to look stupid in front of their peers. So they don't want to make a mistake. But if you have an environment, if the core values are that experimentation really is allowed and encouraged. I mean, we had 2 giant test tubes, 6 foot tall, about 1.5 feet wide. In one test tube, there were marbles of all the experiments we did that did not work. And it was full of marbles. And in the other test tube, there was just the ones that did work, and it was about 20% full. So everybody who came into the office saw those giant test tubes about the experiments that didn't work. Now, were those mistakes? No, we applauded and celebrated those test tubes. I thought it was one of the best things we did to not only not penalize people for making mistakes, but for encouraging them.
Good. That's a growth mentality, what they say. But I'm curious about another side, of course, because growth is really important and culture is extraordinarily important, I think, for any organization. But in 2014, you sold blinds.com to Home Depot. What emotions did you experience once the deal actually closed? Because this was your baby, so to speak.
It was my baby, but I had several babies along the way. The first website that I started was not blinds.com. It was nobrainerblinds.com, to make buying blinds and shades a no-brainer. And I had to fold that into blinds.com when it was diminishing, because we had No Brainer Blinds and we had blinds.com and we had some other ones as well. And so a lot of people said, Jay is just not going to allow us to stop No Brainer Blinds. That was his first child. But it was fine. I said, well, why didn't you do it a year ago? It made no sense. I was wondering why you kept it so long. So I was okay with things like that. And I knew once I took in some institutional investment, which didn't happen for 10 years or almost 12 years since when I launched, it was all done through organic growth and very little capital. Once I realized that I was going to sell the company, then selling it, there was not an emotion of sadness. It was an accomplishment of, look what we've done. We set out to do this and nobody thought we could. In fact, people said, what the hell are you doing selling blinds? Mm-hmm. That can't make money. Do you have any employees? Do you have an office? People were telling me for years when I was doing over $100 million, and they were still asking me questions like that. I think the most excited or anxious I became was when Home Depot called me one day after they had looked at the business for a while and said, okay, Jay, we do want to make you an offer. And I was shaking, and they told me the amount, and I shook even more. I couldn't even stand. I had to sit down because I was standing. I was so nervous. I literally can feel that energy right now thinking about that phone call. And then I, of course, called my wife. It was amazing.
You know, many founders leave within months, and you stayed for 6 years. Why?
I was told that from my attorney, who's handled hundreds of transactions on both sides, that the chances of me staying were about 1 in 1,000. Sure. So she's had maybe 1 or 2 founders that have stayed after a year. Well, my original goal became not just to be the best at selling blinds, but selling configurable, hard to buy products. So we built a platform to sell blinds, but to sell other products, such as custom cages, custom clothes, custom whatever. We didn't even know what that might be. So we thought about doing that, but didn't. We had to stay to our core because the economy was getting soft, and we felt like we had a lot more to gain just in the blinds business, and it was a little risky to go into a new vertical that we knew nothing about. We would have to probably acquire a company, get a founder, have the founder stay, and we knew that was unlikely. So we didn't do it. We ended up not doing it and did very well in blinds. But when Home Depot arrived, now we have the opportunity to sell all these other products because they had a website that was already selling the products. They already had customers. So we didn't have to worry about customer acquisition costs. We didn't have to worry about distribution. We didn't have to worry about vendors, supply agreements. It was all there. So now I have a chance, or we had a chance, to actually accomplish the original goal, to be the best in the world at selling complex, hard to buy products. So why would I leave when it's right there? Yes, I had my money, but I'm intrinsically motivated as well as extrinsically motivated. And I loved it. I loved the challenge. And there was our opportunity. So I was gonna not walk away from something that we all said we were gonna do. And very few people left after the acquisition. I think, I'm not sure if any, but I think maybe 1 key person left within a year after the acquisition. So we all stayed because we all wanted to do this. And we did. Eventually, we ended up selling multiple products. And now Home Depot is using our technology, our platform, our people, our processes to sell custom decks, custom vanities, custom doors, custom countertops. and many other things will be coming. And they're using the technology not only online, but in the stores. So if you're in IT or if you're in marketing and you have an opportunity to satisfy tens of millions of customers,
Right.
that's an opportunity you don't get by just doing another startup. In fact, the chances of that other startup working is pretty small. This was something that was right in our hands. And why would we not do that? So then it's, okay, so there's some frustration in being part of a big company, but the upside was so tangible, was so right that whatever that was, we were going to work through it, just like we work through all the headwinds of any startup or any company that's trying to scale. So that's why I stayed. It wasn't for the money. It was for the opportunity to do what we always wanted to do. But I will say that the 4 E's about experimentation, about expressing yourself and evolving. I mean, what better playground than Home Depot or a giant company that at that time was doing only 80 billion. And now I think is doing close to 200 billion and has over 500,000 people. So that's something that is just so fun to do. And it was a challenge. And I like challenges. And I think all entrepreneurs like challenges and like to overcome challenges. And then I was learning lots of skills, like how to be more operationally efficient. We were customer intimate and we understood customers and we were removing friction from the process. And we were always thinking about the customer. Home Depot does that too, but their primary driver is operational efficiency. And you have to do that when you're that big. And so I was learning, and we were learning how to be customer intimate and look at customer efficiency by maybe looking at numbers closer, looking at numbers more frequently, understanding what some of the risks were in advance and telling people up front, we think this is a risk. And doing that and not having surprises and learning how to manage up and learning how to just see how the workings of this big successful company was fun. Just walking on their campus the first time. I remember that. I remember the last time. It was just great to be part of it. Look, I've got right behind me the Home Depot apron with all the bling on it that people gave us as we were accomplishing things through the years. I'm proud of those days.
And this is what I find is one of the most fascinating parts of your background. But you recently told me that you're surprised most people don't ask you about your years with Home Depot. Why do you think they're overlooked?
Well, first, I think most people don't feel they'll ever be in that situation. If they are, most people don't believe they're going to stay. I think most people think they're in it for the money, and they may be, and that's fine. I mean, I was in it for the money, but not primarily for that. But I certainly wanted to make money, and I wanted to make a lot of money. So with all this talk about core values and improving myself, improving myself with more money was certainly a factor. But I just think that they don't think it's possible. And if they get their money, why? What else is there to do? So they don't necessarily understand what their drivers are, of why they did it in the first place. And I think that's a key thing. If you're going to ask about why do people go into business and what are some lessons they should learn, knowing why they're going into business is a key thing. And when I teach entrepreneurship, which I've done at graduate level at Rice and at the University of Texas in Austin, the first class is always about, why are you doing this? Is it for the money? Is it to change the world? Do you need agency, autonomy? Are you doing it just to lead? You can't work for somebody, so it's your default way to be. Knowing those things will impact who you hire, what you do, how fast you operate. And that's something that we were able to do, what I was able to do. Know why I was in business. Knowing that and understanding the 4 E's gave me the opportunity to do all those things again at a much higher level and to learn how to manage up to the 5,000 people in the home office of Home Depot and learning what their goals are, what their objectives are, how they think, knowing what they needed, so that we didn't just provide something to the organization, but we learned how to provide to the organization and the people there what they needed and how to think like them, and not just say, too bad, we know what we're doing, we're successful, you operate differently, there's going to be a conflict. It's okay, you operate one way, we operate another, we can coexist. It's like the 5 love languages. People have their own love language. And in business, theirs was operational efficiency, ours was customer intimacy. The two can coexist as long as we don't try to change the other. And Home Depot would make some decisions that would unintentionally change our culture. So speaking up, which I'm not afraid to do, express yourself, number 3, that was something we did. They tried to change our compensation program because it was something that was hard to manage across the organization. We knew that it was integral to our success. So I had to speak up and go all the way up to the chief human resource officer, but doing it diplomatically and going through all the different levels, learning how to do that until eventually the decision was made to keep it, which would have been a disaster had that changed. But Home Depot actually, whenever those things happen, was, I guess it's smart enough, or I don't know what the word would be, but they were okay keeping anything that we believed was really important, unless it was something they just had to change for some legal reason. So that made it fun. I mean, even the whole challenge of going up the ladder and figuring out how to do that was kind of fun, frustrating and fun.
What surprised you the most about leading inside one of the largest retailers?
How much managing up and across there is. I was used to leading by being in charge. I was number 1.
Yeah.
And it was managing down, although I did have a board, a real board. So I had to manage the board, and that's an investor, a few investors. So I had to manage those, which was really good practice for managing within Home Depot. But I didn't realize that that was going to be primarily my job, as being more of an ambassador and a protector of the culture than just leading blinds.com within Home Depot. That was the most surprising thing, is how my role changed to being protector and ambassador on behalf of the team. But also how much we had to learn. I don't want to make it seem like there's an arrogance. And I mentioned this earlier. We learned so much being part of Home Depot on how to get better.
Yeah.
And we mushroomed with Home Depot.
I see.
More than we could have on our own.
And you turned this into a writing as well too. So Lead from the Core became a Wall Street Journal bestseller. What inspired you to actually write in the first place?
Well, I knew I was going to be leaving the company at some point, and I wanted to have some document that would help people understand how we got to where we are, that it wasn't just, a multi-billion-dollar company. And it didn't get there just by technology or through Home Depot. It was through a lot of hard work and understanding of making some tough decisions and how to think. And I wanted the people at Home Depot and the people at blinds.com to know how that happened and to have sort of a primer for them. As it turned out, a lot of entrepreneurs like the book, classes use it, and my family, of course, has it as a memorandum of pop. So I like having it for them too. And I gave each of my family members, my children, 5 and 8 grandkids, they all have one as well. Some of them can't read yet, but they've got the book.
Well, there's 2 different aspects of life. You're actually a doer, but then you became a writer. While you were writing, in the process of writing, did the book change the way you thought about leadership?
I thought it changed the way I thought about writing a book. I mean, it's hard. It It is not something that you just write and it's done. It takes tremendous planning and a lot of iterations. It's like anything good. It starts off bad and you whittle it away and you whittle it away. And then you realize, it's too saccharine. It's too, I wished I had added a little more angst into it, because some people read it and go, didn't you have any issues? And I thought I put in a bunch of them, but they're going, it just sounds like you were having fun. And actually, I asked two of my key people after they read it, said, do you remember anything about it that was like this angst and problems? They go, no, we were having fun the whole time. So I think if I had a chance to do it again, I would really seek out more problems, headwinds. I mean, they're in there and how to deal with those, but there could have been more probably. But again, it's the mindset of thinking, okay, it's just a headwind. We'll get around it. We'll block it. We'll do something. We'll figure it out. And if not, oh well, let's do something else.
Well, it almost implies, and I'm just curious then, looking back, is there a chapter that you had wish you had included?
No, there isn't that. And I've looked at that, and thank God I don't have that regret. But I do regret not adding a little more headwinds in there that a lot of readers were looking for.
Well, you have mentioned that years within Home Depot don't get enough attention, and there may be some things that you thought about post writing the book. Is there something else that you think about writing, or is there another book potentially within your thought process?
I can't imagine taking that much time out of my life at this stage to write that book. With soon 9 grandchildren and my kids and a lot of travel, and I'm on 5 boards. So that's enough. And I try to keep in shape and play sports and still have a life. So I just think that would, knowing there's always things that you can do, and there's always things that look appealing, but you have to prioritize. And that's just a priority. Like I don't go out looking to do a lot of speeches. It could be very lucrative, but I don't want to travel to do speeches. So I've decided just not to do that. And maybe I'd sell more books, but I'd rather spend the time with the kids and the grandkids and my wife.
Yeah, sure. It's the family.
I mean,
it's so important.
I don't have anything to prove anymore, and I can still be very helpful on these boards and still make a difference. And being involved in not-for-profits and using a lot of the skills that I've developed in business and applying it to these not-for-profits who are not used to, nor do they appreciate necessarily metrics and operating cadences and all the governance that a for-profit would have that should apply to not-for-profits as well. But they're thinking of other things. So I like that, and I also like the challenge of starting to ease in these business metrics into the not-for-profits. It's fun. And then seeing it actually work and develop, and then having them encourage it. It's just very satisfying and gratifying to know that you're still relevant, that you're still making a difference, that your mind is still active, and you're still learning and growing.
Well, you are making a difference. You are making an impact, and you're on boards and places like that are helpful. So I'm curious then, are there things that you would recommend for entrepreneurs and the ideas that they should keep in mind as you're helping new entrepreneurs come along? What principles should they be thinking about?
I think when you're on a board, you should be on that board for a particular reason. I mean, there are sometimes you get people on your board for marquee value. That wasn't anything we did. We always looked for people who could give us relevant information for things that we needed. Like we had the former CMO of Staples, and that was helping us with marketing. We had somebody who did a Hong Kong trading company that did distribution and licensing. We needed that. So I think whatever that entrepreneur has as a secret sauce, as a superpower, a special skill. Use that and make that your driver for what you can provide to other people, as opposed to just general business experience, which CEOs can get from anyone. And because you're an operator, this is really important. CEOs love to have on their board former operators because they're replete with just financial people, spreadsheet people. And when they want to know how to approach something or how the board's going to approach something, if you've been an operator, that is very valuable for the CEO, because they respect that, because they know you were in the trenches. They know you're not just doing this from theory, but from your personal experience. So that's something that you can leverage. If the board knows that you are an operator and you want to provide some of these special skills that you have, plus the fact that you were in the trenches, that will be highly valuable to that CEO, and the other board members should know that that's good value, and that will make it more likely that you can get on these boards, because you're thinking of it, of just not being on a board to make some extra money and some upside and some stock and options and making a difference, but really making a difference and getting on that board because of these special skills that you have. So identify your special skills, what you can provide, the fact that you were an operator, and that should be a big advantage over other people who don't have that.
So as we kind of wind things down and people have listened to you, got a lot of wisdom to share, how do they reach you and how are you available? And of course, how do they get the book? Because entrepreneurs should be reading this. I think it's really valuable.
Well, Lead from the Core is available at Amazon. And I was in a bookstore the other day in Boston. I saw it on the shelf. That was fun, seeing it with front and center. Of course, I did take the book and move it so that the face was facing front, so that other people would see it more likely than just the binder. I've done that a few times. But LinkedIn is probably the best way. And I have a jsteinfeld.com website, which is fine. And you can reach me through that and learn more about me. And of course, buy the book and tell me what you think of it. I would love to learn more about what you got from it. And if there's any insight that maybe I can learn from your experience, I'd love to change the way I think if it's something that seems helpful to me, or just to how my framework for thinking.
Well, Jay, I want to thank you very much for your time. I know you're really busy and I took you away from your grandchildren, so get back to them and get back to your real life. But thank you very much for sharing your wisdom, and hopefully people will reach out to you. Those entrepreneurs need to hear the valuable insights that you've shared. Thank you very much today.
I appreciate that. I mean, my definition of success is being in the process of getting better. That's the definition, or helping others get better. So if somehow I was able to help one or two of your listeners, viewers, then I've been successful, and I hope I was. So thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks for being here. Take care, Jay. Well, that's another exciting episode, and so much wisdom to share in so short amount of time. But, I also want to thank those who have supported the Dr. Digital podcast, the publishers of both Burning America and On Track, Ian Hunter, for their support of their program. Until the next time, thanks for listening in. Like, subscribe, and of course, positively review the Dr. Digital podcast. Until next time, this is the Dr. Digital signing off. Deus Volt.